The shift in style in the Batman film series between Batman Returns and Batman Forever proved to be a lucrative decision by Warner Bros., wanting to move away from the dark and gothic world of Tim Burton's Batman towards a campier, family-friendly vision through the mind of Joel Schumacher allowed for the studio to boost its profit margins. Wanting to increase its toy sales, they made a move towards making a film aimed at children, causing a return of the style that had become so iconic in the Adam West Batman series of the 1960s. This zany style angered many hardcore fans who had just lived through a boom of more mature Batman stories through the comics of Alan Moore and Frank Miller and the films of Tim Burton. Even the animated series geared towards children was darker and more mature than Forever. There was still a half-hearted attempt by the filmmakers of Forever to have some emotional core to the film, to still center the core trauma of Bruce Wayne's life as a key plot point that drives his character. This, however, was an attempt that I, at least, felt ultimately fell flat, with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones attempting to one-up each other on who could be the most ridiculous, scenery-chewing villain, and Val Kilmer being given a poorly written Bruce Wayne. The film lost the magic touch of expertly crafted psychologically complex characters that Burton infused his stories with. This film proved to be a major hit despite its faults. It felt like everything Warner Bros. Envisioned for the series would finally be able to come to fruition, now that the pesky notion of having to take the character seriously was discarded. The studio wanted another film, and quickly. They wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and they quickly went into production on another film. This concerned Chris O'Donnell, the actor who rose to fame after being introduced as Robin in Batman Forever.
First movie, things felt much sharper and more focused, and it just felt like everything got a little softer on the second one. The first one, I felt like I was making a movie. The second one, I felt like I was making a toy commercial. I really enjoyed it. You know, even though looking back, I felt like we kind of rushed getting that second one done.
This quick time frame would immediately bring Batman back to the center of public attention and would demand merchandise. This merchandise would need to be made well in advance of the film and would be such a key for the production that designs had to be approved months and months ahead to get a head start on the toys.
So all of those things that you're designing, they're ripping them out of your hands because they're going to make the molds. The molds for them usually have to be made in Asia. So you have to give them the designs far in advance so they can get these molds made to make the toys made, so the toys will be out when the movie's coming out.
Some of the team from Forever would return for Batman and Robin, with Joel Schumacher once again brought in to direct. His vision for a sequel would be even more bombastic than Forever. Val Kilmer would not return. Instead, George Clooney would take over as the third and final Batman for this iteration of the film series. Uma Thurman and Arnold Schwarzenegger would be brought in to portray the villains Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze respectively. Michael Gough and Pat Hingle would return as Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, proving to be the only pieces of continuity for the series between the four films. Alicia Silverstone would make an appearance as Batgirl, and professional wrestler Robert Swenson would play Bane. The film was written by Akiva Goldsman and produced by Peter McGregor Scott. The film required a bloated budget to afford all the big names and expensive visual effects. This would be an ambitious film visually, and Schumacher was given extensive tools to fulfill those ambitions. The budget was reportedly $125 million. Batman and Robin was released on June 20th, 1997, and was met with extremely negative critical reception. The film did less than expected at the domestic box office, though made up for that failure at least somewhat from the international markets, with the worldwide box office total reaching over $238 million. This was a disappointing number given the immense budget and being unable to make much if any profit on the project. There was a fifth film planned to be titled Batman Unchained and helmed once again by Joel Schumacher, but due to the critical and commercial failure of Batman and Robin, this film was scrapped. The film's legacy has been cemented for several years now as one of the worst superhero films of all time, and amongst the worst films of all time, with both Joel Schumacher and Akiva Goldsman apologizing for the end product. It has been credited with ushering in a new age of superhero films that took their source material more seriously and had more mature themes. not simply serving as IPs to be milked for as much merchandise and tie-in profits as possible. The film has been trashed all over the internet for as long as it's been around, and you can't find many serious defenders of the film anywhere. There are those of us who have nostalgia for the film, but who have mostly been able to detach those thoughts towards how bad the film really is. It is a large budget film that has led to years of discussions and has had a massive impact on the film industry. Its legacy will live on forever. For Joel Schumacher, the legacy of this film serves as a stain on his career, but I think that he has done enough other great work to be sufficiently forgiven for this stinker. Now, as you can probably tell, I won't be making a video about how this is a secret masterpiece or that it is extremely underrated. I think that the hate the film has gotten is, for the most part, warranted. With that being said, let's dig into why I think that is. Let's explore Batman and Robin. The film leans even heavier into all the aspects that I found nauseating about Forever. While the set design and production design in general is nice to look at, it doesn't feel right for a Batman film. It feels like a kid's cartoon as opposed to a serious Batman film. That's the exact problem, is that they didn't even attempt to make this serious at all. Its tongue is always firmly planted in cheek, and no character can have any moment to be human. It feels like a precursor to all the worst aspects that people complain about in the MCU. There is no weight to anything that happens on screen. Even the returning Michael Gough can't get me to care about Alfred's ailing health, since it's handled so nonchalantly. The writing in the film is of course horrendous, with no characterization at all, just cheeky one-liners. None of the characters are given room to be characters. They have no personality. All the personality that Burton infused Batman and Bruce Wayne with has dissipated, giving way to empty husks wearing colorful costumes. Walking action figures occupy this over-the-top, visually intoxicating world. This is then accentuated by bland at best acting. Clooney is a poor replacement for Kilmer, and he ends up being the worst Batman of the series. He tries to be sort of affable and less serious than his predecessors, but this weighs down his character from having any meaningful moments. Uma Thurman knew exactly what she was doing, and I think her performance is much more bearable than Jim Carrey or Tommy Lee Jones's were. While she doesn't match the Burton villains, she is kind of fun to watch and serves as the lone highlight of the film. Schwarzenegger's performance is predictably terrible, but in a way that I can't help but find endearing. There's something about his personality that makes me find him charming, even in his worst roles. While this isn't necessarily a good thing when you're trying to be a villain, it makes him more fun to watch as he crashes and burns. Alicia Silverstone gives an awful performance, with every one of her one-liners having this very stilted delivery that hurts the flow of the film. Her action scenes are also very poorly executed. The film is Schumacher's vision taken to the extreme. For that, he deserves some respect. He was able to realize his vision, a campy, goofy Batman film that reflected the silver age of the comics. While there aren't many, there have been some people I have seen online who have defended the film as the ultimate campy queer superhero film and begrudged nerds for killing off this style. While I can respect that people want to see some more of the campy aspects of Batman reflected in his films, I can't back up defending this film. While it took those aspects to their extremes and served as a pure manifestation of that element of Batman's history, it also killed the campy and melodramatic elements of his character from ever resurfacing again. Since this film, Warner Bros. Has been very careful to kill those aspects out of any live-action Batman project. As someone who enjoys those moments in doses, this is a sad consequence. In the Burton films, we had silly moments, some that I felt went too far, but others that I felt struck the right balance, with Batman Returns serving as the quintessential example of how to strike this balance. Schumacher pulled all the Jenga pieces at once and created a mess of stylistic insanity that ultimately was too much to support itself. The whole film feels like a cheap ploy to sell more toys, with the commercialized nature of Batman even being reflected in the Batman credit card. While there are some fun moments in this film, they are but a drop in the ocean. While I will admit, for being such a bad movie, it is an immensely watchable bad movie, and for that, I give it props.
Where's yours?
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!